Today's essential question is how can you name and construct angles? Go ahead and write this down in your notes. Looking at the key idea, there are two vocabulary words that we want to look at. So the first one is adjacent angles. Two angles are adjacent angles when they share a common side and have the same vertex. Go ahead and circle the word adjacent angles. If you think about the word adjacent, that basically means next to. Like two lanes in a freeway are adjacent. The person you're sitting next to is adjacent to you. You can have angles that are adjacent as well. So take a look at this example here. Angle 1 and angle 2 are adjacent because they're right next to each other. Angle 2 and angle 4 are not adjacent. They are not next to each other. Instead, they're across from each other. Two other angles that are adjacent would be angle 3 and angle 4. Notice that they share a line. So, for example, 4 and 3 share a line. They're adjacent. 2 and 3 share a line. They're adjacent. 1 and 2 share a line. They're adjacent. The other kind of angle we're going to be talking about today is the vertical angle. So, vertical angles, if you look at the definition, says two angles are vertical angles. Go ahead and circle the word. When they are opposite angles formed by the intersection of two lines. Vertical angles are congruent angles, meaning they have the same measure. Go ahead and circle your vocabulary word. Congruent means they are exactly the same measure. Let's take a look at the picture for an example. It says angle 1 and angle 3 are vertical angles. Well, let's take a look at it. 1 and 3 are across from each other. See these little arcs here? One arc here, one arc here indicates that they're the same or congruent. Look at 2 and 4. They're also right across from each other. Anytime angles are right across from each other, they're called vertical, and they're also always going to measure the same exact measurement. That's why this one has two arc lines, because they're exactly the same. So 1 and 3 are vertical angles. They have the same exact measurement. And 4 and 2 are vertical angles. They have the same exact measurement. Example 1 says naming angles. Use the figure shown. Name a pair of adjacent angles. Again, don't forget, adjacent angles share a line. So, can you think of any adjacent angles that you see here? One of them could be ABF. So if I were to write that angle down, you're going to write the angle symbol. Angle ABF and angle. Okay, let's see. Is there something that shares a line with this ABF here? Yeah. How about this line here? FBE. They share this line here, so that means they're adjacent. So I'm going to say an angle FBE. Okay, that's one pair. Let's think of another pair. Let's start with this angle here. ABC, so just choose any angle. Angle ABC and angle, we said ABC. Well, let's see what shares with this line here. That would be angle CBD. Angle CBD. Let's find some more adjacent angles. I'm going to go ahead and start with angle CBD. And I know that this line here is being shared with angle DBE. So I gave you 3 examples. There are many examples of adjacent angles here. This example, B, says name a pair of vertical angles. Remember, vertical angles are angles that are right across from each other. So can you see any angles that are right across from each other that look exactly the same in terms of how big they are? Well, here's a line and here's a line, and these two angles here and here look like they're right across from each other. So I'm going to name this angle ABF. That's angle ABF and angle CBD. Okay. Those are right across from each other, and they also look like they have the same exact measurement. So we'll go with those two for vertical angles. Okay, example 2 says, tell whether the angles are adjacent or vertical, then find the value of x. Well, if you look at these two, and if you look back at your definition, well, let me think. Vertical angles are angles that are right across from each other, right? So I'm going to answer this one as vertical angles. And then it says find the value of x. How am I supposed to figure out what x is? Well, I happen to know that vertical angles equal the same exact thing, so I know that x is going to equal 70 degrees. You can use the degrees bubble since it's easier for you to write that down. B, well, here's an angle that's 31 degrees, and here's an angle that's x plus 4 degrees. So I'm going to have to figure out, well, are they adjacent or vertical? These are next to each other. That means adjacent. And they share this line here. That's another way I can check. So B is going to be adjacent, but I have to figure out what x is. So how do I know what x is going to be? Well, I do see this little red square here, which means it's 90 degrees, so I can set up an equation. I know that 31 plus x plus 4 is going to equal 90 degrees. Okay, then I'm going to have to solve this. Well, I'm going to combine my like terms. I'm going to say 31 and 4 is 35 plus x equals 90 degrees. Then I'm going to subtract 35 on both sides because I want to get x alone. So I subtract 35 here, and I subtract 35 here. Okay, and let's see what's that going to give us. I'm going to bring down my x equals, well, when I do 90 minus 35, I'm going to get 55 degrees. Okay, finally, example 3 says, constructing angles, draw a pair of vertical angles with a measure of 40 degrees. Well, if you need some connections, let's do some steps, okay? And we kind of did this already with our previous homework assignment. So for your connections, let's write steps. 1, draw a straight line. You might remember this from a while ago. 2, dot the end of the line of, dot one end of the line, let's say. Dot one end of the line. And then 3, we're going to measure and draw the second side. Measure and draw the second side. Okay. 4, we're going to extend the lines to make 2 angles. Now, we know how to measure angles, right? Well, I mean, draw an angle. Let's start off by doing that. So first I need to draw a straight line. So you guys are going to find a straight edge. And I need to find my straight edge. Okay, so I'm going to draw a horizontal line. Let me move that over here just a little bit. Okay, I know I need 40 degrees, so let me move this over. This looks like it's been pre-marked already with 40 degrees. So remember, you put the little T on the corner. So let me dot the line just like what my steps say. I'll put a dot here. Okay, I'm going to move my protractor to the dot. So put the T there. And then I count from this horizontal line, 10, 20, 30, 40. There's my 40 degrees. Okay, so now I'm going to put another dot at the end here. Okay, just to mark it so I know where to extend. Okay, then I'm going to get my straight line and connect the dot to the other dot. So this dot gets connected to this dot, and I keep going, right? This line I need to keep extending. So just make it even longer, a longer horizontal line. And then I can label my angles. Now I have two angles. I already know this one's 40 degrees, right? So I'm going to label this 40 degrees. And I also know that the other side is going to be 40 degrees. So I'll go ahead and label that. Oops. So the 40 degrees also goes here. And these are vertical. They're right across from each other, and they're congruent, which means they have the same exact measurement.